invite all who care to stand in recitation of Lord's Prayer, followed by a moment of silence. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. It's now 7 o'clock. Shelby City Council meeting is called to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please, Mr. Crum.
Mr. Robb. Here. Mr. Roberts. Here. Mr. Gates. Here. Mr. Martin.
Here.
Mr. McLaughlin. Here.
I'll now entertain a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal from November the 6th, 2023.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion by Mr. Roberts and a second by Mr. Martin to dispense with the reading of the journal from November 6th, 2023. Roll call, please. Oh,
Mr. Martin.
discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Martin.
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin. Yay. Mr. Robb.
Yay.
Mr. Roberts. Yay. Mr. Gates.
Yay. That motion passes. Now it comes to time for public comment. If anyone has any public comment to make to council this evening, come to the podium, state your name and address, and make your comment. Hearing none, we move forward then to reports from standing and special committees. Finance and Personnel Committee, Councilman Gates.
Mayor, thank you. The committee met last Friday afternoon. Deviated a little bit from our normal pattern. We had some other business besides the financial statement to look at. We got an update on the 2024 health insurance premiums. It is a 6% increase. The same plan as this year with no changes. And we heard that there is perhaps an option for a 1-month moratorium in paying the premiums, depending how it goes through 2024. If employees can stay and their families can stay healthy, and we certainly hope they can, then that is a possibility. So we would get perhaps 12 months worth of coverage with only 11 months payment. So that would be a good thing. We talked at some length about closing out the light debt reserve fund. Mr. Martin and I were pretty much, not pretty much, I think we were both in agreement that the finance department should do what is necessary to close out that fund, zero it out this year. There is an encumbrance with it right now. That would necessitate, and that's for our portion of the work in taking down the stack. It would necessitate zeroing out that encumbrance, canceling it, transferring the balance of money into the light fund, and then to reissue that encumbrance out of the light fund. And that's just one less fund that the finance department has to deal with. So I have every confidence that the finance department will indeed do that, bring us the necessary legislation for supplemental appropriation to close that out in December. Another item we talked about briefly was borrowing in anticipation of revenues for the fire fund. The city did something similar to this back when the additional income tax was passed for streets. Rather than wait a whole year to collect the monies for that, The city borrowed in anticipation of the revenues, so we could at least do in that first year at least a partial street resurfacing program. That fund is estimated, that tax is estimated to bring in $500,000 for a year. The finance director's, I think, quick and dirty estimate was that the employee withholding, which is done in a timely manner, would bring in around $200,000. So at this point, he did not think that it would be necessary to do that. But my guess is after the first quarter, we see what is brought in, an employee withholding with that, and then, excuse me, a decision can be made whether to do that. Then at the end of the session, the meeting, we did have an executive session in regard to Ohio Revised Code 121.22 G1. That's the one that's generally called personnel matters. So with that, with those matters out of the way, we did take a look at the financial statement. We're going to look at the last page of that, the income tax. Excuse me. For the year, as of the end of October, we have collected $4.3 million. The finance director said we're close to meeting his prediction of $5 million, but then later said he said, quote, I doubt we'll make that $5 million, but I think it's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of that estimate. If you look across, taking out last year, 2022, you can see it was the highest year cumulative by the end of October. Looking at October alone, $346,000. That is down compared to 2021, when it was $387,000. So it's going to be less than $5 million, but nothing that I think is going to hurt us. But I know that the finance department is keeping close track on that. Looking at the second page where we see the breakdown of the income tax, you can see the withholding brought in $2.9 million so far, and looking at the 3-year average, that's up near just about 16%. So that's very good. Turning to the front page, we'll go through some of the funds. General fund, a little more than $2 million in cash. Excuse me, Mayor. $1.8 million in after encumbrances. We're down this year $329,000 compared to last year. But again, last year we had those some extraordinary revenues there. Health fund is in a good way. The park fund is in a good condition as well. We can see we did a supplemental appropriation to resurrect Fund 252, the Ohio Housing Trust Fund. We can see there's $19,000 there. Looking down at capital improvements, balance of $227,000. We have $144,000 encumbered, and that's primarily for police cruisers. Water fund, $180,000 in cash, $56,000 free and clear. It's down for the year, $75,000. Last month it was down $48,000. So there's things happening there in the water fund. Let me go back up to the sewer fund, and it's traditionally, between water and sewer, they go 1 year is good, 1 year is bad. This is not a real good year for water, but it's a good year for sewer. $173,000 free and clear. Electric fund, we have free and clear $3.9 million. Again, you see the light debt reserve fund, $85,000 in cash. The 32 is that encumbrance for the our share of the, working with the land bank and taking down the stacks. So that's the money that will be transferred into the electric fund and zero this fund out, and that fund, which began back in the 1960s as somewhat of a self-insurance fund to pay any bonds on the light plant at the time. We whittled that away, for various and sundry causes, all good. But now it's time for it to go away for real and for true. Fire equipment fund, $183,000, $23,000 encumbered, $160,000 free and clear. We get down to the hospitalization fund, $521,000 in that fund. That's a good, healthy balance there. Looking to do a quick and dirty, you can see that we have brought in 81% of estimated revenues and expended $68,000 in expected expenditures. So when you compare those, you can see that the city is collectively is living within its means. Back to the second page, again, we see comparisons there. The finance director didn't have anything in particular to share. Third page, again, looking at revenues. If we look at the water, there we can see that drop of $75,000 comparing revenues to expenditures this year. Wages are up 10% over the year, all wages. Hospitalization 16.2%. That was expected. We knew that was our increase for 2023. So to drop down from 16% increase to 6%, that looks pretty good. Although it's still an increase. Looking at the cash investment reconciliation statement, we can see there are some monies labeled in PNC. Of course, this was as of the end of October. The finance director had shared with us on Friday that the accounts in PNC Bank were to be closed this week. So he is nodding his head. Tomorrow, he says that he will go, my guess is the Willard office, perhaps.
Dublin, actually.
Dublin, okay, whichever. And he'll close out our accounts with PNC. And those monies are, the finance department shops around, sees where the best interest rate is, and probably has already made that decision where those monies are going.
Still working on it.
Still working on it, he says. So I imagine that'll be resolved tomorrow before he meets it with the folk at PNC. I would certainly hope that those monies are going to be transferred electronically and not traveler's check or some such thing. Yes?
Yeah. Thankfully, in Dublin, the U.S. Bank branch is right next to the PNC branch, so.
Isn't that convenient?
Yeah.
So, well, anyways, you can see where what the monies are, where the monies are. We are down to next to nothing in Sylvester. That in many ways is by their choice. They had made it clear to the city quite a few years ago that they did not care to have public monies. The state of Ohio requires depositories of public funds to collateralize them at the rate of 100%. So my guess is they chose not to tie up their monies, to collateralize not just the city of Shelby's, but any other subdivision's funds. So, then the primary beneficiary, of course, as you look across, is U.S. Bank that has $11.6 million of the city's money. As of the end of October, the amount in the city treasury was $15,961,305.25. The next page is the Sutter Roush Fund. which is bounced, there is the Sutter Roush trustees, the mayor and finance director and law director, have made some improvements there, and so that's, explains that. The other question I had during the meeting was the status of reconciliations from the municipal court balances. The deputy finance director reported the last time they heard from the clerk of courts was the beginning of October. So those accounts are still unbalanced. Mayor, I believe that concludes my report. If my colleague has anything to add, or the finance director, please, I would ask that they do so.
Councilman, the personnel, that.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor, thank you. Yes, it's clipped here. Yes, there was a person, you did make a personnel report. Thank you for that. Thank you for that prompt. We have a new operator trainee at the water treatment plant. His name is Michael Freeble, and to answer my question, yes, he's one of the local Freebles, and he was to start Monday was the question mark. So, you had reported that negotiations had begun with the FOP, and the next meeting with that union is on the 29th. On the agenda is an executive session to discuss contract negotiations, and I expect that you'll have more detailed things to share with the council in executive session. So, Mayor, that concludes my report. I move that the combined financial statement and the cash investment reconciliation statement, both dated October 31st, 2023, be received, placed on file, and posted to the city's website.
Second. We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. Martin that the combined financial statement and the cash investment reconciliation statement, both dated on October 31st, 2023, be received, placed on file, and posted to the city website. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Rob?
Yay.
Mr. Roberts? Mr. Gates?
Yay.
That motion passes. Thank you, Councilman Gates, for the fine report.
Mayor, it's my pleasure.
All right, move to Utilities and Streets Committee. Councilmember Martin.
All right, thanks, Mayor. All my paper clips here. Utilities Streets Committee met on Thursday, and we have a couple brief things before I get into the main thing. I'll be calling on Mr. Ensman to help out with a couple details here to answer some questions we may or may not have. First, sanitary sewer project, Seneca Drive and Wyandotte Drive, a sanitary sewer project. There's a need to replace, redirect, add, and abandon a section of the sanitary sewer. See, I can do consanguinity, but sewer, I can't do it. I'm like that wide receiver that makes the amazing diving catches, but can't catch right over the middle, right? So, get the good with the bad here. All right, so the issue with the sanitary sewer infrastructure, it is under the Ashland Railway tracks, and it's crumbling. And so we're looking to replace / redirect that section of the sanitary sewer, and you don't have it to have an map of that. Okay. No problem. It makes it a lot easier with the map, but essentially, as you're going down Seneca, we're looking, instead of going through the under the railroad tracks towards the water tower, south of the water tower, we're looking to cut it off there and redirect that flow down and then go up to join the other sanitary sewer there, and it's just going to make it better. Across the railroad tracks by the water tower, that sanitary sewer has a tendency to lay a little flatter, and we have some backup problems and stuff, so we think that that will also alleviate that, as well as the issue with, of course, getting easement for the railroad tracks. So, does seem like the best option all the way around. And we'll be grouting that sanitary line close under the railroad tracks. Engineer's estimate is around $100,000, seeking project completion by middle of May, and I've agreed to sponsor that legislation. All right. The bulk of the meeting was, actually, go to, well, yeah. The bulk of the meeting was dealing with AEP on-site partners. Joe Glansman was in attendance, discussing the battery energy storage system for our solar. So BESS for short. A lot of y'all got these details, so I'm going to hit kind of the highlights. First one is that, in essence, it is a 10 megawatt battery system. However, it gets us 10 megawatt hours for 2 hours. So it's a little bit more than just that. So that's kind of the storage capacity of that. And we'll go over the numbers here, but I think the important thing to look at is that we were happy as all get out when we were able to get a diesel generator that was a 2 megawatt generator for around $610,000. This is essentially giving us the ability to have what comes down to a 10 megawatt power source for cost to the city up front of about $490,000. And so it's going to be significant and beneficial, I think, for the city. It is going to be, the project term for it is 15 years, and it AEP on-site partners will own, operate, and maintain the system. We will be paying an annual service fee that will be paid monthly. So I don't know why we don't call it a monthly service fee, but I digress. And that pays for the capital investment, but also we have the ability to participate in grid services to sell off some of the additional electricity from that and get benefit from that as well. And so, yeah, so I don't know, Mr. Insman, if you want to walk through the financials, or you want me to? All right, so we have we were presented at council 5 options. 3 options without grid services, 2 options with grid services. I asked for a 6th option, which is essentially another grid services option. And the reason being is that the original options for the grid services, obviously we understand that transmission savings and capacity savings, those are going to be a year after the project starts. So we can get your lovely little sheets here. So we know those savings occur in year 2. But the grid services revenue on the projections was put as under starting in year 2, when actually we'll be able to participate in grid services year 1. We'll be able to get those in year 1. And so what that did is it made sense for us to not defer, because initially there's several options here. We could defer the battery storage fee to year 2 when we would realize savings, or we could pay for it up front. Paying for it up front does a couple things. One, it significantly adjusts the project savings we get from it. It also is cheaper, because we were essentially paying for the ability to defer. The kind of the opinion of the committee, the recommendation of the committee, I should say, is that we would go with what is termed here in front of me, option 1GS, which would also be option 6, standardized thing there. Essentially, we would pay $490,000 up front for the ability to get 75% of the cap and trans savings and 25% of the grid services customer savings. We're trying to squeeze that to 26%, but doing what we can. Essentially, for the sum of the project, our complete savings would be $12.9 million. So, and we know that these are very accurate because we know exactly what savings we get from a megawatt of these during peak power. We know what that relates to because we've been doing this now for almost 10 years with our generation station. So we've always looked at more ways to add generation, and this is a beneficial way to do that. Solar power without a battery system is an incomplete system, simply because the sun sets. So being able to utilize that will be very beneficial going forward. So I don't know if there are any questions on that before we go on to the next thing, but I'll entertain questions on that piece before we move on. All right. I didn't skip anything. Okay. All right. We got an update on the utility billing software. It's nearing completion. Long story short, we're essentially running both systems simultaneously right now to make sure that they're both tracking the exact same things. Because we wouldn't want to switch over to a new billing software and then all of a sudden it's doing the wrong outputs. So we're running both simultaneously. And we, if all that checks out, then we'll be switching over. The last data poll we'll be running is November 30th. For that. That gives us a lot of different utilization, including the third-party billing merchant and different things we'll be able to do with that. To include, we'll be able to do ACH payment processing, account management, email billing, mobile access, online payment processing, email and text notifications, and automatic phone messages, all through that. Our customers will be getting a request in the December utility bills to get additional customer contact information to make sure we have complete records, stuff like that. One change is that the service convenient fees will be changing. Right now, the convenience fee for all transactions is $5.75. Service convenient fees are going to go on an escalator. Thank you. Not elevator, escalator. An escalating scale, depending on what someone actually is charging. So for our average user, they'll actually be paying less in convenience fees. For me and my household, because I can't keep kids from keeping lights on all over the place, I will be paying more. So, but you know, it is win some, lose some. All right. Parks the Reservoir camera update. All right, we got a change here. There's a lot of moving pieces. We were hoping to have everything hooked up November 27th. I just got another update here that it's not going to be installed on November 27th. We're still working through scheduling logistics. No date has been set yet. Enclosures need to be mounted on poles. Syntec ordering that hardware, switches and module, and Omni will be splicing that fiber at the connection point. They've already run the fiber to those terminal points, but they actually have to connect everything. So more to come on that later. All right, there. That's our point.
Thank you, Councilman Martin. Are there any comments or questions for Mr. Martin in regard to his report? Mr. Gates.
This term, service convenience fees, is that a euphemism for something? Is that the credit card fee?
Yes, yes.
Go ahead, Mr.
Yes. Either one can speak.
All right, I guess I'll go. No, that's the convenience for the third-party billing software, as opposed to the actual merchant services credit card fee. That's my understanding. Is that wrong? Okay, I'm wrong. See, this is why you should have spoken.
Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, the merchant fee is the convenience fee. This is the convenience of utilizing the card. If you want to use the credit card, there is a convenience fee to utilize that card through the billing, third-party billing services.
Mr. Gates.
Well, I don't have any problem with, people who wish to use the card, that they pay the fee as opposed to the city pay the fee. But service convenience fees, like I said, that's a euphemism if I ever heard one. Thank you for that clarification.
Any further discussion or questions or comments? Thank you, Councilman Martin, for a fine report. We'll move forward to reports of city officials. I'll be brief this evening. For the past couple of weeks, I've been occupied with typical mayoral duties and delights. On November the 7th, participated in the Shelby City Health Department Board of Health staff meeting. On November the 9th, I also participated in a Community Action Commission board meeting via Zoom. On the 13th, we conducted our first full-fledged negotiation session, as Mr. Gates mentioned in his report with our police department. On November the 15th, I attended Richmond County Regional Planning Commission Executive Committee meeting in Mansfield with Mr. Geis. And there are other things, of course, mixed in between all of that. Some personnel issues and so forth. And I think Mr. Gates being covered with personnel. I actually, Mr. Friebel was ill today, so he wasn't able to start today. But that was the plan, as mentioned there. So with that, as the conclusion of my report, are there any questions or comments from me? All right, now we'll move forward to Mr. Crum, Director of Finance.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Gates really had all the excitement in the numbers department. I don't really have anything to add, so no report from me, sir.
All right. Mr. Crum? Mr. Eister, our law director, had emailed earlier today that he would be here late, coming from the north here, so he may still make it in here in a minute. But we'll move on to Mr. Geis, project coordinator.
Thank you, Mayor. Before we talk about our Ohio Public Works Commission application for our Shelby water line, on December 1st, we'll be going over to the district to vote on that, so it looks like all things are good, so that should happen. So we're very happy about that. One other thing that just got completed, I don't know if it was Friday or this morning, but on our flood protection program, we have the opportunity for residents to sign up to get alerts if the water level is so high. But another feature that I had was administer was be able to call the gauge at any time and get a gauge height. Seems like every time we went to do that, it didn't work from the phone line. The phone line, for whatever reason, kept getting, USGS was frustrated with it, so they put in a new system where they're using their own modem to send out, so forth. So on this new page here, this is every 5 minutes you can get the height of the stream. So before, on the old page here, which was up here, you can go back to the legacy page, the old one. That updated every hour. You know, it would show every bit of it, but it was every hour. A lot can happen in an hour. So this is going to give us a lot. Anyone can go in this and see every 5 minutes. It updates every 5 minutes. So that's going to be a nice tool. Also, one thing I did know that they were going to do on that, here's all the things to subscribe, but it actually has a camera on it. So you can actually, like the Friends of the Black Fork had that camera for people who are out of town, they can see where the water level is. Previously, before where that gauge is right there, we did have a light on there. So we're going to talk to Mr. Renton today. We're going to look to see what it takes to get that back on. So folks who are out of town can see, you know, where the water level is at any certain time. So.
Mr. Martin?
And are we putting that link on our webpage?
That's right. It's right there. Yeah, it's right there on our flood protection program page. You can click on this. Are you talking about the?
But you have to have several steps to get there.
Right.
Yeah, that's, I was on the website. It's under the flood protection. Or
Right.
is it on
And then you
the,
got to go to that. Or you want to look and see. Yeah, I can try.
make it a little more convenient.
Yeah, I've often thought, for all of us who have used it, you know kinds of steps to go, this one, click here, click here, click here. But it would be kind of nice if we could reduce that by a couple clicks for sure.
I'll see what I can do. So, but I just wanted to go over that, let everyone know that this is brand new. I didn't get a chance to talk to the mayor about it.
Yeah.
Sorry, but, brand new, so,
Super.
and that's all I have.
It's a good tool to have. I think those, the numerals and so forth, the stripes, probably next year in the spring, summer, we can get those maybe, more clearly defined. So that's great, great stuff. All right, are there any, questions or comments for Mr. Geis regarding his report? If not, move forward to new business. Under new business, we have ethics policy. Mr. Gates.
Thank you, Mayor. We do have an ethics policy that's a part of our codified ordinances. It was included in the packet. But I wanted to share with people this from the Ethics Commission. It's ethics.ohio.gov. And there's, if Mr. Geis would scroll down just a little bit, you can see where it says quick links. There is an Ohio Ethics Law e-course, an online course, electronic course. It is an hour in length. It's very worthwhile. I've gone to trainings where it's been done in person, but it can be done online. And if Mr. Geis could click on that, very small print, but it tells about the items that are covered in that. So it is worth an hour of people's time. Of course, we are required by law, we electeds are required by law to take the public records training once a term. That's 3 hours worth. But this is not required, but I would certainly strongly suggest that people do it. You can print out a certificate that can then be filed with the finance department in with your personnel record. And certainly, Mayor, I would suggest that, that you would recommend that department heads take this. And as well as other high-placed administrators within the city. Continuing education is a good thing, and for an hour, it may keep someone out of trouble. Oh my gosh, I didn't know about that, but now I do. It's more than simply, you can't accept a gift of greater value than a coffee mug or something like that. It talks about nepotism, illegal interest in contracts, things like that. So it's very much worthwhile, and I would highly suggest it.
Very good. And thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Question,
Mr. McGaugh.
what courses we need to take? Ethics law, public records, and sunshine, right? Or is sunshine combined in with public
Yes.
records?
The only one that we are required to take is on public records. And what happens in those trainings is they add about like the last half hour, they do some information on public meetings. The Public Records Law and the Open Meetings Act combined constitute the sunshine laws in the state of Ohio. But, those are required. This is kind of like icing on the cake.
Thank you. All right, is there any other new business that you brought before council? Mr. Gates?
Yes, wish to share some information about the Purple Heart Trail. I was reading in last week's Addison County Independent. That's the county paper in the town where Patty and I are planning to move. They had a whole separate section on information for veterans in honor of recognition of Veterans Day. I'll read a little bit here. The town of Bristol through the years has been home to many individuals who served our country in the armed forces, including more than a dozen veterans who've been awarded a Purple Heart for the sacrifices they made while in the line of duty. Bristol Selectman Joel Bouvier is spearheading an effort to honor the town's Purple Heart veterans and other ex-service people with the installation of a sign designated Bristol as a, quote, Purple Heart town. And there was a picture here from the town of Brandon, which is in the next town, or next county over, about how it's been recognized as a Purple Heart town. I went online and found some information from the Military Order of the Purple Heart Trail considerations, recommended procedures. I think that's something that the city should pursue, and I'm going to pass this on to my colleague, Mr. McLaughlin, for him to take a look at. And I would ask the clerk to have that as unfinished business at the next meeting. So something certainly worthwhile for the city to consider.
Very good, thank you.
Very, very well.
And like many others, I don't think I've ever heard of that. Good to hear. Any other new business brought before council? Unfinished business, any unfinished business this evening? All right, let's move forward to legislation. Yes, Commissioner.
I move we recess for 5 minutes.
Yep.
Second.
We have a motion to recess 5 minutes for Mr. Roberts and a second by Mr. Gates. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Rob?
Yay.
Mr. Roberts?
Yay.
Mr. Gates?
Yay.
That motion passes at 7:40.
Thank you. For that.
Get through there. Party.
Just in time. Look at my agenda during my hour drive home and, but you know, you're up to 40 at this point. I don't know, probably you're right.
What are you up to?
Looking forward to the 28th.
Yeah.
90 degrees.
Yeah.
I can put on a heavier jacket.
Yeah, you know, I really didn't have some fun. I started.
You missed it. Sometimes it's just circulation.
We catch our duties.
On this bill.
You know, I don't know how bad it used to be.
What's the good word?
School board tonight?
It was a long one.
Columbus, too.
Really? Wow, that's fun.
I gotta use too many nails, they don't use only about 30 or 45, I gotta use too many nails.
They were going over finances.
I've been away from mine for so long. That at the time, Steve from the airport, 24 feet. Underground garage.
I was
If I ever had a lot of
Remember driving up to 19 cars,
Well, I think, look, this we got all of this. The good thing is, I don't have a lot of access. I don't really care, I just don't want everybody to
tell them to go get the signs.
So Marshall is
So it comes back with one that you guys look at, and like, answer. I have no idea what that is.
Yeah.
So, and I think the other thing.
Well, I had to retire when I was in preschool. I was on the fly.
Jen's.
Hot mess.
About 30 more seconds here,
I was
gentlemen.
down there playing in the park, in that wooded area near Playscape. Down the creek. I'm there, playing, just going back in the woods there.
You know, other ones are.
That was in the 70s. So they had this big. I forgot all about that. It's in their name.
Mr. Conley, y'all ready?
All right, we are live, sir.
It's 7:45, council is back in session. Now we're ready for legislation, Mr. Crum, please.
Ordinance number 27, 2023, repealing chapter 1484, satellite dish antennas of the codified ordinances of the city of Shelby.
Move for first reading.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. Roberts for the first reading of ordinance number 27, 2023. Discussion. Mr. Gates.
Mayor, city adopted this ordinance back in, I think it was 1984. This is when satellite dishes first came into being, and they were about, 8 or 10 foot in diameter. And there was, concern that people would put them into their front yards in order to, get the satellite. Well, what happened soon after that is the FCC preempted us, took jurisdiction over satellite dishes. So I don't know if this ordinance had ever been enforced. But as it says in the first whereas paragraph, that the chapters are neither relevant due to changes in technology nor enforceable due to preemption. So this is a cleanup piece of legislation. There's no sense having an ordinance on the books if it either isn't being enforced or can't be enforced.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin.
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Yay.
Mr. Rob.
Yay.
Mr. Roberts.
Yay.
Mr. Gates.
Yay.
Ordinance number 27, 2023 passes its first reading.
Ordinance number 28, 2023, amending section 236.04, contracts, materials, and labor of chapter 236, Director of Public Safety of the codified ordinances of the city of Shelby.
Move for first reading.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. Roberts for the first reading, ordinance number 28, 2023. Discussion. Mr. Gates.
Mayor, I want to thank the law director for bringing to our attention a few meetings back about changes in the state law regarding bidding procedures. This ordinance is a result of that. There is included in the packet a copy of revised code, Ohio Revised Code section 9.17. And I think what the legislature is trying to do with various kinds of subdivision is set a fixed amount for force accounts. Force account is an item that does not have to be bid. The money still have to be appropriated, but setting it at $75,000 for calendar year 2024. And the second section allows the Director of Commerce to adjust that upward by 3% per year. So it's kind of it would be like a cost of living adjustment to that. So what this ordinance does is for the Department of Public Safety is to bring our procedures into line with the state law.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin.
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin.
Yay.
Mr. Rob.
Yay.
Mr. Roberts.
Yay.
Mr. Gates.
Yay.
Ordinance number 28, 2023 passes.
Ordinance number 29, 2023, amending section 242.01, contracts, materials, and labor, chapter 242, director of public service of the codified ordinances of the city of Shelby.
Move for first reading.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. Roberts for the first reading of ordinance number 29, 2023. Discussion? Mr. Gates.
Mayor, this is a ditto, so to speak. We have a chapter regarding the Department of Public Safety and one for the Department of Public Service. And because this city charter has a single subject rule, which this council obeys, dare I point out that the state legislature does not obey the single subject rule in the Ohio Constitution, but far be it from me to tell them how to do their business. But this would do the same for the Department of Public Service, which of course includes light, water, sewer, streets, whereas the other ones, of course, are police, fire, and health. So,
Very good. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin? Mr. Rob?
yay.
Mr. Roberts?
Yay.
Mr. Gates?
Yay.
Ordinance number 29, 2023 passes its first reading.
Ordinance number 30, 2023, enacting section 234.13, forms of payment of chapter 234, director of finance and public record of the codified ordinances of the city of Shelby.
Move for first reading.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. Martin for the first reading of ordinance number 30, 2023. Discussion. Mr. Gates.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I want to thank the finance director, the deputy finance director, and the utilities director for comments they made on my first draft. This version is much lesser than than what I had written originally, but the point of this ordinance is to empower the finance director in his role as city treasurer to decide what is acceptable payment for the city, because as city treasurer, he's responsible for every penny of city revenues. And that I think that, for example, we do use credit cards in some departments. We don't accept debit cards. Now, whether we should or shouldn't, I think it's the finance director who is the person who's best positioned to decide whether we use a debit card, for example, and any other forms of payment. I know when I had conversations with the utilities director, that this new software would allow, I think he said it's Apple Pay, which is another form. Whether we should or shouldn't, I think, is a decision that should rest with an elected official. In this case, the finance director is city treasurer. So that's that's the point of this, is to empower an elected official who ultimately is responsible, again, for every penny that comes in, to make the decision as to what we will accept for payment.
Thank you. Mr. Martin.
Thank you. I don't know if it's a matter of semantics or wording, and of course this is our first reading, so I'm just throwing this out into the atmosphere here. But as I read this as a layperson, it seems to indicate that the director of finance could accept other forms of payment in addition to United States coin and currency. And what way Mr. Gates was talking, whether it's Apple Pay, a debit card, it's accepting United States coin and currency in a different form. But at the end of the day, it's United States coin and currency that's actually going into our account. So Apple Pay might, however, debit card, whatever, it's the different mode of transportation of that coin and currency. My concern is if we don't have definitive language on that, then our finance director, well, not this finance director, but a future finance director could accept things like real property or Bitcoin or some other types of things. I don't know that that would be acceptable in my eyes, or necessarily the intent of this piece of legislation. So I don't know how to clean that up. I don't know how to address that. I assume accepting Bitcoin and, you know, a hog from the farm or whatever kind of barter thing that, you know, that the finance director could accept for tax payments, for example. I don't believe that necessarily is the intent, although, you know, I'm not going to speak to the intent. I'm assuming that's not the intent. So how do we ensure that we're really talking about forms of payment of actual United States coin and currency, and not in addition to other forms of payment?
Mr. Crum?
I would just like to thank Mr. Gates and everyone else for the work on this. I do really like the idea of having a central, okay, yes, this is a form of payment that we're accepting, specifically because we do have, obviously, utilities in City Hall, and within City Hall, several different departments, and the pool and all of that. So, yeah, but I do agree, I would not like to be accepting chickens for payment. Trading those is just difficult, so we do want to word them appropriately.
Yes. Mr. Gates?
Let me add some clarification. You know, someone said, where did this come from? A few weeks ago, I had the privilege of preaching at 2 rural open country churches near Bloomville. And at the second church, the treasurer of the joint consistory came up and says, how do you want paid? Well, I knew enough about old church history that I had this flashback to old call agreements between congregations and pastors, where they would promise to pay, you know, to deliver, you know, so many tons of coal, you know, to the parsonage, or and sometimes, you know, even so many bushels of corn to the pastor and his family. So I think the treasurer saw kind of the deer in the headlights look in my eyes, and she said, should I make the check out to you? And I said, yes, immediately. So that's kind of where this came from. Now, you know, just a little bit, the first sentence there, you know, shall accept United States coin and currency, including Federal Reserve notes. I meant that very literally, that if someone comes in to pay their water bill, their utility bill, you know, that we will take, you know, cash and, you know, currency and coin. So, you know, so the question becomes is, what is the vehicle? I think is maybe maybe Mr. Martin even used that word vehicle. You know, or the methodology. You know, we don't accept debit cards. The most likely place that the city would accept the debit card, I would think, would be the concession stand at the pool, because those kids are carrying debit cards right and left. But whether the city accepts a debit card, I want that decision to rest with the finance director, and not with the pool superintendent, or even with the park board itself. Although I have, you know, hold them in high regard. But again, I think that, you know, what it should be, you know, should rest at a higher level. Now, as you know, these things are always first reading, and if someone has, you know, better language to introduce, you know, or to use to amend, please do.
Any further comment on the first reading of ordinance number 30, 2023? Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin? Mr. Rob?
Yeah.
Mr. Roberts?
Yay.
Mr. Gates?
Yeah.
Ordinance number 30, 2023 passes its first reading.
Ordinance number 31, 2023, amending section 1490.10, general exterior maintenance requirements of section 1490.14, yard area maintenance of chapter 1490, exterior property maintenance of the codified ordinances of the city of Shelby.
Move for first reading.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. Roberts for the first reading of ordinance number 31, 2023. Discussion? Mr. Gates.
Mayor, junk cars have been somewhat the bane of our existence for some time. The reason for that is the General Assembly, again for reasons known only to it, carved out 2 exemptions from the criminal junk car ordinance. One is an exemption if a vehicle is considered to be historic, whichever. The second is if the value of it is greater than $1,500. Well, historic becomes, somewhat judgmental, and it doesn't take much of a pile of metal to have a value of over $1,500. So, and people are aware of those 2 exemptions. And so I don't know that we've cited anyone under the criminal junk car ordinance for a long, long time. So I worked with Mr. Dean, our code enforcement officer, and have crafted this. We're looking to move, not to move, because that language in the criminal code would still be there, but looking to enact junk motor vehicle definitions in the exterior property maintenance ordinance. Suggested these 2 sections, general exterior maintenance requirements and then exterior property maintenance. Here's what the new language is. If you look at in section 1, in section B, if you go down to the 3rd line where it starts no junk motor vehicle, that's the new language here. No junk motor vehicle shall be parked thereon. A junk motor vehicle is a vehicle that meets any of the following criteria and has remained in such condition for a continuous period of 14 days. Apparently inoperable, does not display a valid driver license plate, partially damaged or wrecked, including but not limited to any of the following: missing wheels, tires, transmission, or other mechanical parts. And then finally, partially dismantled or discarded condition. Likewise, in section 2, looking at the 2nd page, we see where it has part D, automobile parking, going down to paragraph 2 there. Again, starting with the 3rd line. Anyways, there's a proviso added here. Provided that no junk motor vehicle shall be parked thereon, a junk motor vehicle, and it's the same language as was in the 1st section. The specific language defining what a junk motor vehicle is taken from the Jackson Township zoning code. They've used it effectively there, and I think that this will certainly give Mr. Dean the tools that he needs to rid the community, that puts a lot of burden on him, but start to eliminate junk cars throughout the city. And again, if this is enacted, people who may try to play the historic card or try to play the $1,500 value card, that won't work in that. Those would work if someone were cited under the criminal code, but not here under the exterior property maintenance ordinance, which in effect is a form of zoning code.
Thank you. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Barton?
Yay?
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Rob?
Yay.
Mr. Roberts? Yay. Mr. Gates?
Yay.
Ordinance number 31, 2023 passes 1st reading. Come to miscellaneous business. Miscellaneous business. Mr. Gates.
Mayor, I was saddened to read over the weekend of the death of Rose Frangella. Miss Frangella was a city employee for 30 years before she retired, and I think it was 1986 when she retired. She started a city employee young in her working career, working at the utilities office for many years, about 20 years, and then transferred into City Hall, where she was the assistant finance director. I had the pleasure of working with her. She was a diligent employee, friendly, pleasant. I can't think of enough positive adjectives to use to describe Rose Frangella. I had an opportunity earlier in the year to present a program over what's called Elmcroft. I can't think what they call it now, but they're in Ontario, where she was living, and had a nice conversation, a nice visit with her. So, again, I was saddened to hear of her death, and I'm sure that Mayor, you and everyone at City Hall and everyone around this table joins me in extending our condolences to the Frangella family.
Yes, for sure, thank you. Mr. Gates.
Mayor, I move that council go into an executive session, excuse me, for the following purpose: preparing for, conducting, excuse me, or reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Gates and a second by Mr. Martin to go into executive session for the purpose so read. Discussion? Mr. Gates.
Mayor, if this motion should pass, I would request that you, the finance director, and the police chief accompany council into executive session.
Yes. Okay. All right. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin? Mr. Rob?
Yay.
Mr. Roberts?
Yay.
Mr. Gates?
Yay.
And the motion passes. Council goes into executive session